the Radio Forest Podcast.
Forrest, this is Chan from Blues Traveler. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you very much. When you get this many, they start to lose significance, but I'll take it. I appreciate it.
What did you do? I assume you performed live. You're always playing.
We actually, it was really pretty great. We played at the famous Capitol Theater in New York, or right outside New York City, one of our favorite spots. We've been playing there off and on for 30-plus years. So, and the crowd, you know, it's kind of where we came from, so the crowd is our people. When my friends give me, like, happy birthday and stuff like that, I'm always like, whatever. But when, like, people in the crowd yell happy birthday, I get a real kick out of that. I don't know what that says about me, or maybe I just love people screaming nice things at me.
Hey, tell me about your side project, Warhorse. Why does Warhorse have a 4 and a 3 in it?
Well, it's just kind of a cool, that's what the kids do. There's like a Warhorse from 1970, and then there's like a garage death metal band in New England somewhere. These days on the internet, you Google anything, you'll find some versions of it. And I always just kind of like, you know, it's kind of like the Prince in me. I like kind of alternate letters for spelling. It made sense. Mainly, also, I play a lot of video games, so I'm always writing my name with weird characters. You know, it's along those lines. And then also, I got all the IPs.
Yeah, no one else has Warhorse at the 43.com.
Exactly. My kids are grown up. I quit partying, so I realized I needed a hobby. Because Mr. Mom wasn't really cutting it, and just running around partying and having fun was not cutting it. So I was like, well, what do you like to do, Chan? And I was like, well, I like to play guitar. I've always enjoyed singing, but, you know, when you have a lead singer like John in your band, he's doing the singing. But it's always something I've really enjoyed. So it was just a good opportunity to work on my singing and get a lot of that stuff done. But the rule is, unless, you know, circumstances change and you're paying me a lot of money, if I can't drive there in the afternoon, we're not doing it. So it's a SoCal band until further notice.
You've been playing guitar for so long, my first instinct is that it wouldn't, but is this changing at all how you sound or feel on stage with Blues Traveler? Like, are you putting more hours in and now you're like, hey, I've actually reached another level of guitar playing?
For sure. I mean, mainly, too, is when I'm off and I'm kicking up Warhorse, I'm always working on stuff, you know, a lot more than I might be if I was just home messing around with the kids and doing home stuff. And, you know, even if I played a couple hours every morning, but when you have songs to write and gigs to play and rehearsals to have with a real band, you're in it. So it definitely keeps me sharp. And, you know, the great thing about Los Angeles is there's so many amazing players. And Warhorse is is a trio that's the main thing, and then we have other people that come in and out with all these different great musicians I know. So I get the opportunity to play with all these great players, which just can't help but rub off on me a little bit. And to be honest, you know, I started playing a lot of acoustic guitar. Another side project is this thing I do called Chan Gang, which is me pretending to be a singer-songwriter. So I play acoustic with different people or my drum machine. That really helps me work on my singing because it's all you. But acoustic guitar is a whole new instrument, really. I mean, I've always played acoustic guitar, but to really get into the finger picking and all the things that acoustic can do is a world unto itself, which I've really been enjoying. Basically, I just figured out as many Elliott Smith songs as I could because he's the best.
So can any of the Chan Gang or Warhorse riffs or lyrics end up in Blues Traveler, or how do you guys write? Are those worlds too separated?
It certainly could. And, you know, a lot of the Chan Gang stuff, especially and Warhorse songs, haven't been released on the album other than the first, 10 we did for this record that came out and the horse they rode in on. Get that plug in. I've already talked to John, and, Blues Traveler's rules for songwriting are we'll use anything. We just throw it into the pot and mix it around and see what comes out. So it certainly could end up in Blues Traveler land. And, songs are songs. So there's no reason Warhorse can't do a version and Blues Traveler can't do a version. Songs are songs. They don't have to be, especially because we're all related, obviously. Doesn't have to be, once it's out, it can't be used by someone else. So we have no rules to our songwriting, and we'll take any ideas you have.
You guys playing TLC's Waterfalls, in theory, I don't want to say not a good idea, but you're like, oh, okay, that's different. But then you hear it, you're like, holy shit, this is actually a great rock song, and you guys really did it well, but you have no fear, right? So that must just be the basis of the band. It's like, yeah, sounds good. If it works, it works.
Well, Blues Traveler, since we started, has had just a myriad of influences. We just love music. whether it was like obviously Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix, Grateful Dead when we were starting out. At the same time, we were super into like Charlie Parker and bebop jazz and Prince, the English Beat and the Police. We would just smash all that together. So, that was in high school. So really from that point on, it's always been whatever style, we just try and kind of incorporate it and make it our own. And I think that helps us kind of have a pretty distinctive sound. We can't really help who we are. We just kind of try and lean on that and be as much Blues Traveler as we can be. The whole thing about Waterfalls, when Four was big, we did all these, when Runaround was big and everything on Top 40 Radio, which was as surprising and fun for us as anyone. We did all these radio shows, and at the same time, Waterfalls was a huge hit. So we ended up bumping into TLC and a bunch of these things. We had like our trailers right next to each other. So we kind of became amigos. You could not think of anything more different than the adorable TLC, like 5 foot tall hip hop girls and the scruffy hippie Blues Traveler. But, we got along fine.
What was their world like of fame? So when you're talking about Runaround and Hook has 54 million views on YouTube. Runaround has 34 million. But what's it like in the world of female pop stars, a trio that's sort of a rap group? What was their world like with you looking in compared to your fame at that time?
The thing is they were just friends from where they grew up, kind of like we were. We got together in high school. So their interaction and their relationship when they were together with us and comfortable because they knew we were in the same kind of boat was very normal. For them and us, it was kind of just like kids hanging out. I mean, we were all just in our mid-20s at the time. So they seemed pretty dang normal, and there was not a lot of diva vibes going on. And out in public, there might have been a little more hysteria around them than us, but backstage, they were just totally chill.
Now, at that time, what was your impression or first time noticing Gin Blossoms? Because I just talked to Robin Wilson and I asked him the question about you guys. Like, hey, when did you first become aware of Blues Traveler? So you guys are on tour with them this summer in the Spin Doctors. So when do you first remember hearing the Gin Blossoms or seeing their rise?
Here's the funny thing. In 1990, at that point, we were like a big college band. We'd tour all over the country playing college quads, and we were in Tempe, Arizona, playing the University of Arizona in Tempe. We did like some outdoor, spring concert in the quad or whatever. Always a blast. Afterwards, I was walking around with somebody I met there, and there's this little club, like right off of campus. There was people all around it, and it was just pumping, and I was like, oh, shoot, that's the local band. Who's that? Because I could just tell, because we had just come out of that whole scene in New York. And someone said Gin Blossoms. I'm like, oh, that's the band. And sure enough, a couple years later, they had some hits on the radio. And I was like, I remember those guys. I first saw them at their little local bar. I've talked to the guys about that. They told me the name of the place, and that was their little scene for, coming up. You first got to conquer your little city or town. Honestly, those are some of the funnest times, obviously, because you're just kids and you're coming up from like 5 people seeing you at a dive bar to like being the hip thing in town for a little bit anyway.
Yeah. What about Spin Doctors? Because they had a pretty massive pop too. They had a couple of songs on the radio. They're on MTV.
We came out of the same scene in New York. Chris Barron, we went to high school with Chris. We brought Chris up to New York. He lived with us for a minute, and then Eric Shankman was a friend of ours from like the little New York Lower East Side bar scene and went to the new school with John and Brendan. And then Chris ended up going to the new school. So we were all kind of buddies, and they kind of formed around that whole scene, and we would play all the same little bars and clubs coming up. So us and Spin Doctors were both kings of New York at the same time. So we go way back. And we used to like sit in with each other. One band would play one set, and then the other band would play the other set. We'd switch club. We'd play in different clubs up and down the Bleecker Street or whatever. And we'd rotate sets, or we'd segue in between each other's sets. There's a ton of history and great friendship between the Spin Doctors and Blues Traveler.
I always thought of a touring musician as being a super hard career. You're touring so much, you're eating food, whatever, and wherever. You're sleeping in weird places. Got time changes, you're missing birthdays and having trouble with relationships. But you get to go out and tour with Gin Blossoms and Spin Doctors this summer. You must really look forward to this. This must be a hell of a good time of a show.
Oh, this is going to be a great summer. It's going to be hits, nonstop hits, And then all these bands have been playing for 30, 35 years, so they're great bands, and we've all been playing live. So all these bands know what they're doing. I mean, touring's great. I've done it my whole life. I mean, trust me, we don't work that hard. And at this point, it's pretty comfortable. I get to rock out on stage, and we've been blessed enough to have great crowds and been able to keep doing this. I mean, for Blues Traveler, playing together as a band and improvising and playing live was really our first love. And then the rest of it followed. So I think part of our longevity is that's always what we've kind of been able to fall back on, is that love of playing live and touring. And, being home 24/7, 12 months a year is kind of overrated.
You guys are back at Red Rocks for the 4th of July, which you've done every year since 94, except for 2 years. How have you pulled that off? There has to be other bands that are like, we'll pay more for the 4th of July at Red Rocks. How, right? Has anybody ever wanted to bump you?
We first played it opening up for the Allman Brothers in 91. We were like, this is amazing. And we were just kind of getting well known. And Colorado's always been an amazing second home for us. They didn't do it the next year, so we brought Horde there. And then after that, we were like, well, we've done it 2 years, and we just took it. And it's always going great. And, the powers that be kind of just let us keep it. We did it for 10 years and 20 years. So it's really like our family reunion gig. I pinch myself every time I'm playing there. So I'm just grateful. And we'll keep it going as long as people keep showing up.
What was that like playing with the Allman Brothers?
Well, we were just kids. So Bill Graham was our manager, the famous impresario, and he had his connections with all these great bands that came out of that era. He got us on in 1990. We were like 20, 21-year-old kids opening up for the Allman Brothers for like 2 summers. And for us, it was just like advanced rock jam school. I mean, we were pinching ourselves. But we were also just dumb kids. So we just thought the whole thing was a gas. And I think the Allman Brothers kind of saw some of themselves in us. So we got along great. But, I mean, for us to be around those legends was, a treat. Main thing was just watching them play every night. The level of excellence and how they just owned the stage was just great to see. They were so relaxed. For us, that was probably one of the most important things that happened to us coming up. And we have Bill Graham to thank for that. And the Allman Brothers, so thank you guys.
What was Bill Graham like? Was it just nonstop stories and advice, or what kind of dude is he? Oh, my
God, great stories, great advice. And you've never lived as a band until you've had Bill Graham screaming at you. It was a highlight.
What did he scream at you for?
For stage diving. He didn't like it because people got kicked in the head, and he was right. That was like 1990 and 89, 90. That's what we were all doing. Everyone stage diving. So, of course, we were trying it out. And there was some other stuff, Bill was a passionate man, so he could find some stuff to be angry about. We just thought it was awesome getting yelled at by Bill. That's what you get when you get some punk-ass 20-year-old kids.
It'd be like doing a backflip in front of your grandpa. Like, I totally get it.
Exactly.
I've seen you on stage with Les Paul, but also Paul Reed Smith guitars. You mentioned acoustic. I've seen you play a couple acoustics live at some of the New York gigs. So how many guitars are in your arsenal? Are you a collector of sorts, or do guitars come in and out?
I'm not really a collector. I mean, I have a bunch of great guitars, but I'm not like a hardcore collector. I like switching them up every decade or so because it just kind of changes my approach a little bit, changes the vibe a little bit, keeps things fresh. So I was on a Les Paul through the aughts, and then I brought back that Paul Reed Smith I've been playing now, probably about 5 years ago. That seems to kind of really fit the bill. And around here, I play a great Gibson SG, a 1990s Gibson SG that's just fantastic. So different guitars have a little bit of a different flavor, so I like switching around.
Who have you worked with that was a completely different experience than what you expected? Like, you're like, oh, I had you guys all wrong. This is a different vibe.
Oh, we usually have a pretty open mind. Coming from New York City in the late 80s when we came there were so many different bands, and everyone played with each other, and it was all different kinds of music. So we've always been pretty open to all kinds of different things. But playing with the band 303 was really cool because they're kind of more of an EDM band, and it was really fun to mix those two elements. Great guys. So that was a lot of fun, and they showed us that, the whole thing really can mash up no matter how you slice it. Shout out to 303, great Colorado band.
That's awesome. It's Chan Kinchla from Warhorse and also Blues Traveler.
I like to keep Blues Traveler going, but the big money's in Warhorse.
The kids are going crazy for the Warhorse with the 3 and the 4.
That's what I hear.
Well, he's a guitarist and blues traveler with Jim Blossom's Spin Doctors. They're here at Ford Idaho Center in Idaho, August 26th. Chan, it's been great to talk to you today, man. Thanks for the time.
My pleasure. Can't wait to get to Idaho. Look forward to it.